a billionaire who flipped burgers behind the counter of his own Wendy's, a man worth hundreds of millions who traded his jersey for a hard hat and walked the factory floor, and a Hall of Famer who built a $300 million fortune without ever owing a single penny to a bank. Yeah, these are the wealthiest retired black NBA icons who intentionally live like everyday citizens. Professional sports is famous for catastrophic financial ruin, superstars squandering astronomical fortunes on depreciating assets and toxic entourages. But these guys did the exact opposite. They amassed staggering wealth through brilliant investments and unparalleled fiscal discipline, then aggressively rejected the spotlight's opulence. From fast food titans driving unremarkable sedans to real estate magnates wearing discount clothing, I'm about to show you 10 legends with 9-figure portfolios who look completely broke. Starting with a man who spent 2 decades in Miami and refused to touch a dime of its glittering excess. Number 10. Udonis Haslem, the architect of Liberty City. When you spend 2 decades playing for the Miami Heat, the temptation to surrender to the neon-soaked excesses of South Beach is almost unavoidable. Miami is a city engineered to separate wealthy individuals from their capital through VIP tables, depreciating exotic cars, and waterfront mega-mansions. Udonis Haslem, however, looked at the glittering skyline of Biscayne Bay and completely rejected its underlying financial trap. Haslem is a product of Liberty City, one of Miami's most historically disenfranchised neighborhoods. That background installed a permanent psychological firewall against frivolous consumption. While his high-profile teammates were engaged in an escalating arms race of luxury yacht rentals and bespoke European sports cars, Haslem quietly funneled his NBA paychecks into community-stabilizing assets. He didn't want to look wealthy. He wanted to own the infrastructure of his hometown. Instead of buying a fleet of Ferraris, Haslem invested heavily in low-income housing initiatives. He understood that true power isn't flashing a diamond watch at a nightclub, but providing affordable living spaces for the working class. Furthermore, he diversified into commercial franchising, securing ownership of multiple Subway and Einstein Brothers Bagels locations. He approached his business portfolio with the same gritty, unglamorous, rebounding mentality he utilized on the basketball court. Today, with a net worth comfortably in the tens of millions, Haslem still drives incredibly practical vehicles for his daily commutes and dresses in standard athletic wear. He actively mentors younger athletes on the dangers of the celebrity surcharge, preaching a gospel of asset accumulation over aesthetic validation. He lives below his means because he views every unspent dollar as a tool to rebuild the community that forged him. Number 9. AC Green, the Spartan of Showtime. The Los Angeles Lakers of the 1980s defined a specific era of American excess. Dubbed Showtime, the team was surrounded by Hollywood elites, endless champagne, and a nightlife culture that devoured athlete bank accounts at a terrifying speed. In the absolute center of this chaotic hurricane stood AC Green, a man who completely and utterly refused to participate in the financial and physical extravagance of his peers. Green is famous for holding the NBA record for consecutive games played, earning the moniker Iron Man. But his endurance was entirely linked to his monastic off-court lifestyle. Driven by deep religious convictions, Green practiced strict abstinence, completely avoided alcohol, and viewed the Los Angeles club scene as a toxic distraction. While other players were purchasing sprawling estates in the Hollywood Hills and financing massive entourages, Green lived an aggressively Spartan existence. He viewed his NBA salary not as a ticket to luxury, but as a stewardship. He aggressively saved his income, funneling his championship bonuses into conservative investment funds and youth foundations rather than designer wardrobes. He was frequently teased by his teammates for his sheer refusal to spend money on entertainment, yet he remained completely unbothered by peer pressure. Following his retirement, Green's wealth has only compounded. He runs the AC Green Youth Foundation, pouring his resources into educational camps and mentorship programs. If you were to encounter him today, you would see a man who dresses simply, drives standard domestic vehicles, and operates with a profound humility. He survived the most decadent dynasty in basketball history by simply refusing to open his wallet for anything that lacked permanent spiritual or communal value. Number 8. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the ascetic scholar. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar remains one of the most dominant forces to ever touch a basketball, holding a legacy of 6 championships and 6 MVP awards. Yet, his relationship with wealth is deeply complicated, forged in the fires of a devastating financial betrayal. In the 1980s, an unscrupulous business manager severely mismanaged his fortune, leading to a massive loss of capital that forced Kareem to play several years longer than his body preferred. That trauma completely eradicated any lingering desire for the superficial trappings of celebrity wealth. Kareem pivoted into a state of financial conservatism that borders on absolute asceticism. He realized that material possessions were fragile and easily stolen, whereas intellectual property and historical knowledge were permanent. Today, despite holding a net worth in the tens of millions, the legendary center lives a life that more closely resembles that of a tenured university professor than a sports icon. He does not collect luxury automobiles or custom diamond jewelry. Instead, he spends his capital on acquiring rare jazz vinyl records, historical African-American artifacts, and vast libraries of literature. He has transitioned into a prolific author and cultural critic, writing books and essays that challenge societal norms. When he travels, he avoids the extravagant entourages typical of his peers, preferring to move quietly and unobserved. He dresses in modest, scholarly attire, valuing comfort and dignity over brand recognition. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar lives below his immense means because he intellectually outgrew the need for financial peacocking. He understands that true status is derived from the power of one's mind, not the price tag on one's suit. Number 7. Luol Deng, the refugee real estate titan. To understand the intense frugality of Luol Deng, you must first understand the harrowing journey of his childhood. Born in South Sudan, his family fled a brutal civil war, migrating first to Egypt and eventually settling in the United Kingdom as political refugees. That early exposure to total displacement and profound scarcity permanently wired his brain to reject the superficial consumerism that defines modern professional sports. Drafted into the NBA and eventually earning over $136 million in pure salary, Deng found himself surrounded by young men who equated wealth with visible luxury. Deng, however, operated with the quiet, relentless pragmatism of a survivor. He recognized that basketball was merely a temporary vehicle to secure permanent, untouchable wealth for his extended family and his homeland. While his peers were debating which custom Rolls-Royce to lease, Deng was quietly establishing D3N9, a massive investment syndicate. He aggressively funneled his NBA checks into acquiring real estate across the globe. He purchased apartment buildings in Chicago, luxury resorts in Africa, and high-yield commercial properties in London. By treating his basketball salary as seed capital rather than spending money, he built a real estate empire that dwarfs the net worth of many Hall of Famers. Despite commanding a portfolio worth hundreds of millions, Deng walks the streets looking like an anonymous tourist. He favors unbranded athletic wear and practical travel gear. He reinvests massive portions of his passive income into the Luol Deng Foundation, building basketball courts and infrastructure in South Sudan. He lives like a man who knows exactly how fast everything can be taken away, securing a fortress of assets while completely ignoring the allure of the spotlight. Number 6. Tim Duncan, the mechanic of San Antonio. Tim Duncan is the absolute poster child for sartorial apathy in the modern era of sports. Holding 5 NBA championships and recognized universally as the greatest power forward in history, Duncan earned hundreds of millions of dollars during his tenure with the San Antonio Spurs. Yet, his approach to luxury and fashion became a running joke among fans and media alike. Duncan famously rejected the arena tunnel walk fashion culture. While other superstars hired professional stylists to curate bespoke outfits for their arrivals, Duncan consistently showed up wearing ill-fitting cargo shorts, oversized flannel button-downs, and sensible sandals. He simply viewed high fashion as an utterly inefficient allocation of mental energy and capital. He did not care about brand validation. His financial defensiveness was heavily reinforced late in his career when he discovered that a trusted financial advisor had defrauded him out of more than $20 million. Rather than bankrupting him, this loss only hardened his resolve to live simply and control his assets tightly. Instead of purchasing private jets or yachts, Duncan's primary hobby revolves around his ownership of Blackjack Speed Shop, a vehicle customization garage in Texas. But he doesn't just own the shop on paper. He literally spends his retirement getting grease on his hands, working under the hoods of cars, and managing the daily operations like a standard blue-collar mechanic. He drives heavily modified but visually unassuming trucks and SUVs. Tim Duncan attained the highest peak of athletic success and chose to spend his retirement living exactly like a quiet, introverted auto enthusiast. Number 5. David Robinson, the military philanthropist. David Robinson did not enter the NBA through the traditional route. He arrived via the United States Naval Academy. That rigorous military background fundamentally shaped a psychological discipline that completely immunized him against the toxic spending habits of the 1990s. Known as the Admiral, Robinson amassed a staggering fortune through his contracts and endorsement deals, yet he viewed his wealth through a strictly utilitarian and philanthropic lens. Robinson understood that extravagant personal consumption was profoundly hollow. While many of his contemporaries were engaged in high-stakes gambling and building sprawling vanity mega-mansions, Robinson was meticulously planning a venture capital and private equity firm. He co-founded the Admiral Capital Group, a firm that manages hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate and hospitality assets. But his most stunning financial flex was not an acquisition. It was a donation. Robinson gave away a staggering $9 million of his own capital to found the Carver Academy, an independent school designed to provide elite educational opportunities to inner-city children in San Antonio. When an individual possesses the moral conviction to write a $9 million check for a school, the concept of spending $300,000 on a sports car instantly becomes absurd and frivolous. Today, Robinson navigates the elite circles of private equity while maintaining an incredibly modest personal lifestyle. He wears standard corporate suits, drives highly practical vehicles, and operates with a quiet, authoritative humility. He lives below his means because his ultimate goal was never to elevate himself above the masses, but to build an economic engine capable of lifting others up with him. Number 4. Jamal Mashburn, the corporate chameleon. Jamal Mashburn was a scoring prodigy in the 1990s, armed with a lucrative contract and immense fame. However, very early in his career, he absorbed a vital piece of advice from his former coach, Rick Pitino, who warned him that the basketball stops bouncing for everyone. Mashburn took this warning with deadly seriousness, deciding that he would systematically transition from a basketball player into a ruthless, analytical business operator. Mashburn recognized a harsh reality. In the high-stakes world of corporate boardrooms and venture capital, the label of former athlete is often a liability. Bankers and executives frequently view retired players as unsophisticated targets. To counter this, Mashburn completely stripped away his athletic persona. He discarded the flashy jewelry, the designer streetwear, and the exotic sports cars. He intentionally adopted the wardrobe and demeanor of a mid-level regional manager. By wearing unassuming khakis, standard corporate polos, and driving sensible sedans to business meetings, he disarmed his counterparts. They stopped seeing a celebrity and started seeing a serious negotiator. This absolute lack of ego allowed him to quietly assemble one of the most impressive franchise empires in American history. At the height of his business expansion, Mashburn owned over 90 restaurant franchises, including massive portfolios of Papa John's and Outback Steakhouse locations, alongside several automotive dealerships. Despite boasting a net worth that easily eclipses $100 million, he continues to operate completely in the shadows. He refuses to flaunt his wealth on social media, choosing instead to live the highly structured, modest life of an invisible corporate titan. Number 3. Hakeem Olajuwon, the debt-free tycoon. Hakeem the Dream. Olajuwon represents a completely unique financial philosophy in the realm of professional sports, one dictated entirely by his strict adherence to his Islamic faith. After migrating from Nigeria to play for the University of Houston, Olajuwon eventually earned over $100 million during his legendary Hall of Fame career. However, his religion strictly prohibits the practice of riba, or the paying and receiving of interest. In the modern American economy, almost all extreme wealth is built on leveraging debt, securing massive loans to acquire assets. Olajuwon's faith explicitly blocked this path. Therefore, he had to operate with supreme financial discipline, acquiring his assets entirely in cash. He began purchasing massive tracts of undeveloped real estate throughout the Houston area, specifically targeting zones near upcoming transit corridors and highway expansions. Because he carried zero debt on these properties, he was completely immune to market crashes and interest rate hikes. He simply held the land patiently until commercial developers became desperate, selling his parcels for exponential, unencumbered profits. His real estate portfolio quickly pushed his net worth toward the $300 million mark. Despite this overwhelming success, his religious convictions also mandate extreme personal modesty. He vehemently refuses to wear silk or gold jewelry, traditionally viewed as markers of status in the athletic community. He wears tailored but understated clothing, avoids all forms of ostentatious display, and splits his time living a quiet, spiritually focused life between Texas and the Middle East. He built a financial fortress without ever owing a single penny to a bank, achieving absolute freedom through total discipline. Number 2. Vinnie Johnson, the Rust Belt industrialist. During the gritty, physical era of the Bad Boys Detroit Pistons, Vinnie Johnson was beloved as the microwave, a sixth man who could heat up and score instantly. While he achieved great fame on the court, his NBA salaries were microscopic compared to the supermax contracts of today. He knew he needed a massive second act to secure his family's future. Playing in Detroit, Johnson astutely observed the foundational industry of the city, automotive manufacturing. While other players were attempting to launch record labels or open vanity restaurants, Johnson looked at the sprawling factories of the Rust Belt and saw unparalleled opportunity. He founded the Piston Group, starting as a small packaging supplier for the major automotive companies. Johnson completely abandoned his celebrity status. He did not run his company from a luxury penthouse suite. Instead, he put on a hard hat, wore safety goggles, and spent his days walking the factory floors, learning the brutal, razor-thin margins of industrial supply chains. He operated with a blue-collar work ethic that earned the deep respect of the executives at Ford and General Motors. Through decades of relentless, unglamorous grinding, the Piston Group evolved into a colossal enterprise. Today, the company generates nearly $3 billion in annual revenue, positioning Johnson's personal net worth at approximately $400 million. Yet, he remains utterly invisible to the paparazzi and the sports media ecosystem. He lives a quiet, profoundly unassuming life, proving that the most lucrative opportunities often require you to trade your celebrity jersey for a pair of steel-toed boots. Number 1. Ulysses Jr. Bridgeman, the ultimate stealth billionaire. If you want to witness the absolute zenith of stealth wealth in the history of professional sports, you must look at Ulysses Jr. Bridgeman. Playing the majority of his career for the Milwaukee Bucks in the 1970s and 1980s, Bridgeman never signed a mega contract. In fact, his highest annual salary barely crested $350,000. Yet today, his net worth is estimated to be north of $600 million. Bridgeman achieved this by completely eradicating his ego. During his NBA off-seasons, while his peers were vacationing or resting, Bridgeman purchased a local Wendy's franchise. But he didn't just act as a silent investor. He physically worked behind the counter. He operated the drive-thru, flipped burgers, and studied the precise operational logistics of the fast food industry. He lived exactly like a minimum-wage shift manager to master the business from the ground up. This extreme humility laid the foundation for Bridgeman Foods, an empire that eventually swelled to include over 450 Wendy's and Chili's locations across the country. After selling his restaurant portfolio for a staggering sum, he didn't retire to a yacht. Instead, he acquired Ebony Media and subsequently became one of the largest independent Coca-Cola bottlers in the world. Despite possessing wealth that rivals small nations, Bridgeman is entirely unrecognizable in public. He eschews luxury fashion entirely, favoring standard corporate polo shirts and basic slacks. He drives unremarkable vehicles and operates without a whisper of arrogance. He is the ultimate testament to the fact that absolute financial supremacy requires the willingness to live, work, and appear exactly like an ordinary citizen. From Ulysses Bridgeman's quiet fast food empire to Hakeem Olajuwon's debt-free real estate conquests, these legends prove that supreme wealth whispers while insecurity screams. They rejected the seductive traps of celebrity consumerism, choosing instead to build fortresses of generational stability. Their ultimate flex is not what they drive, but the total freedom they secured. Which of these incredibly disciplined financial architects surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments below. Remember to like this video and subscribe to Black Status for more elite wealth breakdowns.